Jobless Reincarnation, or Mushoku Tensei, Season 2 Part 2 is airing now. A lot of people complained about the first part of the season being slow, and I get that. It's a lot of character work, it's a lot of setup. And in that regard, the story structure is a bit weird, because you get a lot of setup in Season 1, obviously, which is pretty standard for the world, but then Season 2 really sets up the story. And Season 2 Part 2, I think people will like a lot more than the first part, especially once we get near the end of the season. I'm not going to spoil anything, so I'll try to keep it vague. But this part of the season, the story really gets going for what it's going to be for the rest of the series. I've read all the light novels. My guess is that they can do 2 more full seasons like this of about 25 episodes and cover everything. They've been averaging 3 books per core. Assuming this core or part 2 or whatever you want to call it has the same structure, I expect for the last 5 episodes to be some people's favorite so far in the anime. Like I said, I won't give anything away, but in part 2, he gets reunited with some characters that everyone likes. You start to get more people that you're familiar with back in the story, and then you get some pretty emotional stuff and more action-oriented stuff later in the season. So if you were someone who was frustrated with part 1, I would suggest just binging it and catching up. Maybe not right now, but by, I would say, episode 7 or 8 of part 2, so you don't get spoiled, because a lot happens. The way that this season is going to end, I think people will enjoy, and it's a good lead-in for Season 3. I'm assuming this show is going to get a Season 3 because it's one of the most popular light novels. The series is done, so I would imagine they would just keep cranking them out. Assuming we get to Season 3, Season 3 has all of my favorite parts from the books in it. Obviously, in Season 2, we've stepped away a bit from the man-god stuff, from the Orsted stuff. We've stepped away from the story on the larger scale, and it's really focused on Rudy. But what it's doing at the university is connecting him to a bunch of people that will then later tie into the rest of the world and the rest of the story. So without being specific, obviously, it's hard for me to get into the details. Pretty much every person that you've met so far in Season 2 will have a bigger part as the story goes on. Or if not a bigger part, at least an important part. So I know filler is something that people complain about with long animes. Usually this is in reference to stuff like Naruto or Bleach or One Piece or whatever, when you're looking at 600-700 episodes or 1,000 episodes. My guess is that Mushoku Tensei, assuming the entire thing gets animated, will end up being around the same length as like Attack on Titan, like 100-ish episodes. And that depends on how fast they do the fights and how much they want to cut down on some stuff, that sort of thing. This show does have what people will consider filler, but all of the filler has purpose. You're not just getting random bottle episodes or sex scenes that are just there to be there. For instance, if you've watched the first episode of part 2, like with the house, like that's not a super exciting episode, but it's obviously a very big development in his life. And the same with episode 2. So that tone is pretty consistent throughout the series. And it's something that I think the series does it really well overall, is that it's not just all action all the time. He's always on an adventure. He feels a lot more human in that regard because he does have downtime. He has travel time where he's traveling for weeks or months. You get these time jumps where he's just been doing the same thing for a year, so we don't need to see the whole thing. So it really makes it feel like you're getting the story of his whole life without seeing the details of every single day. So I'm really looking forward to the second half of Season 2, Part 2 in particular. I can't wait for the internet to see it, because I doubt many people read the light novels in comparison to the amount of people that watch anime. I think the end of the season is going to surprise some people in both good and bad ways. So if you checked out a part 1, I got a lot of comments on my part 1 video of people saying that they did. I would just suggest that once we get about halfway through this season, power through if you really don't like it that much. And I would say if you don't like the end of this season, then the show just might not be for you. But Season 3 will be a lot more action, a lot more plot, a lot more twist, more of the characters you're familiar with. Season 3 will be my favorite, assuming they don't just abandon the plot completely, which I don't know why they would. But yeah, I didn't want to do a super long video about this. I just wanted to talk about it since the new anime season's here. And there's not really a ton that I'm watching this season. I'm not going to go on a huge diatribe, but, obviously there's Konosuba. I've been enjoying Windbreakers and some of the more random ones. Some of these sequel seasons from older anime I just either haven't watched or don't have a huge interest in, like Data Live and Irregular Magician and all that. I'll leave it here for this one. If you're familiar with the source material, let me know what you think. If you dropped it or you pick it back up or whatever the case is, also let me know what you think. I've read the whole series, so I can't be spoiled. I try to respond to all the comments that aren't just insults, so like and subscribe and all that. Thanks. See ya.